Thanks everybody who is joining us today. I am so excited to have our guest on today. So I'm Eliza Freud. I am the founder and CEO of She Speaks, and I am excited to welcome our guest, Denielle Finkelstein, who is the co-founder and president of TOP, the Organic Project, which is a women-owned feminine care company that is making products that are better for women and better for the planet. So two awesome things at the same time. And along with her co-founder, Denielle, really followed her passion and started this business. She's going to tell us about it, but she had a career in corporate America, a really awesome career in corporate America before starting this, but really had this passion to start a business that would work to change the world. So Denielle, I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself and, just give us some background on who you are, and then we'll talk about TOP.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. Thrilled to be able to share our story, share my story, but share our story, just to hope to inspire some other amazing women out there, and men, but amazing women. So my story, I'll start just really personal because that's important to me. My family is super important to me. I am married to my college sweetheart. We've got two almost teens. We live in Providence, Rhode Island. And yes, you sort of hit on, I spent 22 years in fashion retail and had an incredible career, great organizations. I was at Ann Taylor, Coach, Kate Spade, and then most recently was the chief merchant at Talbot's. And it really came time for me, even feeling I had loved my career. I had loved what I had done, but it came to a point for me as I started, and I wanted to really say part of that personal side, which is so important to me, is I was not the mom that I wanted to be. I was never seeing my children. I was working all the time, and I just wasn't feeling fulfilled. And it came down to this point where I really have to, applaud my husband for really encouraging me to make the change. Here I was sitting at the height of my career, and honestly, the job that I'd always dreamed of when I was like 23 and 24 years old, like, oh my goodness, I'm finally in that position. And it came to this point that I had to make a decision because I'm sort of in that midpoint of where my career was, that if I don't do it now, I'm going to just keep being in it. And I'm going to stop feeling fulfilled. And I think the piece too for me was I had stopped learning. And I just love new experiences. I love learning. I'm curious. And so he really pushed me to actually say, you know what, like, it's time, you're done. Like, it's just not healthy anymore. I also wasn't taking care of myself. So he's like, this isn't healthy anymore. And I actually walked out. It was probably the biggest risk personally and professionally that I ever took. But honestly, the best risk I ever took. I was the breadwinner. And so for us, that was, financially a big hit for us. And, we were like, we're going to figure this out. We're going to figure this out. And that's, I think, the piece, that being able to have that support of my husband to really push me through this. So when I left, my intention was like, all right, I'm going to recharge. I'm going to take some time off, spend a lot of time with the family. I will say, like, I work a lot. I love to work. Definitely have the workaholic in me. But it was like, all right, I'm going to take some time and really figure out what's going to be that next stage for me. And in my mind, I kept thinking, all right, I definitely wanted to go to more of a startup type business. After managing, almost teams of 100 people, managing over $1 billion, I wanted to get back down in and really be more hands-on and do more left to right and not just be stuck in my silo. So in my mind, startup, I was like, oh, I'll go to something that's like 25, 50 million. Like that feels really good to me. And so I started doing the research, and sort of, is I truly do believe that things happen for a reason. My cousin, Thyme Sullivan, who is also my co-founder and CEO, we were both at a crossroads, and we met up for lunch, and over lunch just started chit-chatting. And so she spent 27 years in consumer packaged goods. And so she really had the depth of knowledge in what we were about to embark on. And here she was, Coke, Pepsi, and Nestle had seen what had been happening in the food industry when, we're talking about organic and non-GMOs and all this stuff, and plant-based and all these things, these changes that were happening in the industry. And we both have daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're sitting over this lunch, we're chit-chatting, and it was like, oh my goodness, the one thing we grew up with hippie parents. I live a very organic lifestyle. She does as well. And this was the one thing we never changed. And we're like, oh my goodness, we have daughters that, like, as we think about it, they deserve to have the best thing that's going to, they're going to use for their feminine care, their period products, because you know what, we don't know what was going on in what we were using. And we weren't the ones that had changed it. And so that's really what got us excited and sparked really the vision behind how we built Top.
So tell us what Top is. I know you said
Yeah.
it's feminine hygiene, but tell us what
Mhm.
it is, why it's different,
Yeah.
so that we understand a
Yep.
little bit more about it.
Absolutely. So Top, we are women owned, and we are really what we're looking to do. We are feminine care. So I'll start with that. So we are feminine care, but really how we are looking to do things differently is that, the organic piece is extremely important, and really having transparency of ingredients. But then also, when we started to dig into feminine care through the industry itself, the transparency piece was number one. There's just an utter lack of transparency when it comes to feminine care in the traditional brands.
Mm-hmm.
They're not required to. The FDA doesn't actually require them because it's a medical device. So there could be toxins, there could be chemicals, synthetics, fragrances, all of those things that are actually in feminine care. So that was one issue. And that was really that was the first thing that sparked us just for our daughters. We're like, okay, they need to have like clean products that are going inside of them.
Mm-hmm.
The second really was the environmental piece.
Mm-hmm.
And so the environmental piece, 20 billion period products end up in landfills every single year here just in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, it was like, how can we create something that can be better for the environment, and has less of an impact to the total environment, the total environmental issues. And so that was a big piece. So we made a lot of conscious effort to really look at how we were producing our product, where it was being produced. So we actually produce everything in Europe. The standard levels are significantly higher. And then our product and what it's actually made of. So 100% organic cotton, but also plant-based. And so that was really, really important to us as well. And then the third piece, which actually came in, was that period poverty was a significant issue here too in the United States. And so that became a core. So those three areas became our core value, and really our three pillars of the business.
Yeah, and we are quite familiar with period poverty. We worked on a campaign for a partner of ours that was about ending period poverty, and it's just kind of eye-opening how many young women in this country, and women, not just young women, but women, do not have access to feminine hygiene products, and it really impacts their lives. I mean, it really makes it very difficult for them to participate in things that other people can participate in. So
they can't, I think for us, especially as moms of daughters, and when we think of our own daughters, and you do hear these stats, so it's 1 in 5 women or girls that don't have access, is women, we want female equality. We're never going to get it. If we can't provide for some of these women that don't have it, because you're never giving them the opportunity actually to get ahead, or just to reach their own fullest potential, because they're held back by something that's naturally happening to them.
Yeah. So in terms of the brand, you guys started, how long has the product been around? Where can people find it?
Yep. So we started in, August of 2018. And we really spent that fall doing all of the research, doing focus groups, and really starting to fine tune and finesse who we were going to go after. We always knew that we were the moms, and so we were going to go after us. And then it was also really important that we were the moms, but we were also talking, so it's the Gen X and the Gen Z. So when we really started thinking about, just demographic wise, that was really what we were digging into. But why we did so many of these focus groups is because we also wanted to understand what were those important factors to women as we were going to officially do our full launch in 2019. And what was fascinating to us is when we talked about each one of our pillars, each one of the pillars resonated with somebody differently. So one cared about that it was transparent. One was about period poverty. One was about so we knew that we needed to thread those through all the time. But also what it allowed us to do was what were some of those other just catchphrases and the words, and what was the most important thing is performance. Which I think for every woman, we can all say listen, we have our white jeans on and we don't want to leak. That is critical to what we're doing. And so a lot of it was just getting a lot of, wear testing. I mean, I'm going back to my old apparel world where we would truly wear test. This was actually, trying the product out, and making sure that we had the performance that we really wanted it to be at, because that is the most important thing. And so we officially launched in January of 2019. So we started as direct to consumer, and built out that last year, really built that foundation of the business. Did a tremendous, also a ton of research. We worked with a whole group that we got product out to some micro influencers, and got a great feedback and some data that really helped then start to influence some of the stuff that we were doing, as we ran through the balance of the year. We also, what was important to us last year, was finding some strong partnerships and like-minded brands. And we were fortunate early enough to partner up with Beauty Counter, which is a clean beauty brand.
Yep.
And they've got, their beauty consultants are avid, active, vocal, and just zealots. And what was amazing was to be able to get them to partner with us. And this was really grassroots. And we went down, and just started reaching out to them personally, and telling them about the brand, telling them, that we're moms, and, we're looking to make change too. And made some really amazing connections there. And what's been great since then is that Beauty Counter, we watch them, and we admire all that they're doing, but they've taken us into their fold, and they had launched a clean guide, and recommended, I think there's about 20 brands that are on there, but we're their feminine care of choice.
That's amazing.
So love to just have that like-minded, but also just to have the army of women that they have out there that are talking about clean products, and what's important to them.
Yeah. And there's, well, we obviously, given what we do every day at She Speaks, we are big believers in the power of, what women think, and their networks, their personal networks. So it's just true that you guys are a great example of how the power of women and their networks and how they can help build a brand. So I love that. I love that you're helping bring that to life to show people. It's a great example. So in terms of where people can actually find the product, so you guys are pretty new, right? You really only started in January, you said, of 2019.
Of last year. Yeah.
Which is, and then, you get to 2020 and you think, oh, wow, this is going to be awesome.
We had amazing. The plans were amazing. And they still are. They really still are. But, obviously, so we, at the end of last year, and this really goes to, where my cousin, and her background is, she's a grocery geek. So we always knew that direct to consumer was one way for us to just start to build the foundation, really start to build the community. But most importantly, really, 85% of feminine care is still purchased in store. So between pharmacy and grocery and mass. And so we knew that was always our road that we were going to go down. And so for us, we had started all of our meetings, honestly, it was August of last year. It was we started having some conversations. And what really sparked it even more is that my cousin is famous. She's an icon for our brand. And she a year and a half ago bought a tampon costume. And part of what our conversation is when it comes to periods, listen, a lot of people don't want to talk about it. It's a taboo topic. And so what she really did was, she did it because it's funny, listen, if we're going to have this conversation, we've got to make it a little bit of fun, make it a little funny, bring some levity to it. And so what happened was we made this decision. We were actually at this point last year, oh my goodness, are we going to actually be able to keep this business alive? And the minute she put that on, and the minute that we put our faces out there as the brand, as the moms of the brand, it changed sort of our trajectory. So she ran the Reebok Boston 10K in October of last year. And the press that we got from it was unbelievable. And that really changed it. And that is also when Wegmans reached out to us. So Wegmans, which is up in the Northeast, they've got a little over 100 stores, and the buyer saw who is this lady? Who's this tampon? Who's this brand? And so that was really
PR.
Yes. So what was great was, we knew that was always going to be our place to go. And what was so exciting for us is that to us, Wegmans is truly a banner account. They are known for just incredible, they're known as one of the best grocery stores or marketplaces in amongst grocery. And so for us, that was really exciting. So we started to have a handful of meetings. We met with a handful all within the Northeast of grocers up here, and had 8 secured when we walked into February of 2020. So we closed a seed round in February, which really helped then accelerate what we were going to be able to do on the grocery side. So all of our launches were supposed to happen in April and May. And so here we go into March, and everything like screeching halt. So for both of us, and I do, think because of our previous experience and just having, years of experience of having to shift and pivot at different times in your businesses, was we immediately saw that the customer is going online. So we really pivoted and dialed into online as much as we could. So between Amazon, we launched with Walmart.com, even our own direct to consumer. As we knew retail would come back, we just kind of waited and pushed where we could. And so now retail is happening, which is really exciting. So we actually just officially launched in Wegmans now in this August. So super excited about that. And then we have, we're in Big Y, we've Roach Brothers up here in the Northeast. And then we've got a handful in the Midwest, which is actually really cool. We've got this cool little pocket of stores in the Midwest too. And we've got some, continuing on and to continue to build and diversify our distribution model. But also really building out as well our e-commerce side, just seeing the change in what's happened with the customer over the last couple of months. We know that there's been a significant shift. So we would just want to make sure that we still stay where she is as much as possible.
Yeah. And, I'm hoping we can talk just for a few minutes about this notion. I know we have a lot of our community members are aspiring entrepreneurs. Maybe they're already entrepreneurs. And I think one of the things that, any entrepreneur can relate to is this need to constantly be thinking, all right, well, you're on this path. You think, oh, great. Look how things are going great. And then something happens. And the ability to, think innovatively and just kind of turn something, like you said, you guys were poised to have a very big 2020 earlier in the year with launching in several physical retail locations, which is the way as you said, 85% of your sales of feminine hygiene products happen in a store, in a brick and mortar environment. So knowing that when that all shut down, the fact that you guys, then quickly said, okay, we need to be online and rallied to make that happen. I guess what do you think is the thing that people need to understand? Like, what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs, other people who, these are things that happen, like you get thrown a curveball. How do you remain calm to be thoughtful and innovative, like an example that you just described?
I think one of the most important things as an entrepreneur is you've got to be flexible. You've got to be nimble. Because you will take, I say all this all the time, like you'll take 2 steps forward and you're feeling this momentum. And then all of a sudden you take 5 steps back. You're like, wait a second, why is this happening right now? And you're balancing so many balls in the air because you're managing so many different things as an entrepreneur. I think that flexibility and that nimbleness, but also, there's this resilience that you also have to have that is really important. And I say every day, and I say this to my cousin, and I'm so thankful for her and grateful that, to be doing this with her, because I can't imagine doing this alone. Truly, like I do look at, single founders, and it's lonely. And even for the two of us, like it's lonely sometimes. And when we have those amazing moments and we get to celebrate together, or one day one of us just may be down, and it's like, you gotta have that, she may pull me up or I may pull her up. And we have each other to sort of guide through that and push through. And it's a sounding board. So we may be thinking of something as we went through this, it was oh my goodness, still, it stopped us in our tracks for 2 weeks. We were a little paralyzed for what are we going to do? Because also it was what are we going to do personally? What's happening? And what happened was it was actually during my kids' break, and we obviously we didn't go on break. And I remember I was like, I was going to take time off, and I'm like, no, we've got to figure out what we're going to do.
Mhm.
And it was like those 2 weeks of like, we just dug in and like realized what we did. But, I would say the biggest piece of advice and sort of it is, it's nimble, flexible, resilience. You have to be confident. You got to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Really, truly, I think that's a big one, is believing in yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice. And I think one of the other things that I've certainly seen from other female entrepreneurs over the years, and I've experienced myself, I think you have to embrace the hiccups, and you have to embrace failure too, because your business is
Yep.
young, but as you've already experienced,
Yep.
when I worked in corporate America, you have you have highs and you have lows, but at the end of the day, it's a lot more steady, right?
Yeah.
Because the highs are not as high, the lows aren't as low, because it's a different animal, or I found it to be a different animal.
Yeah.
And when you start a business, and I think the other thing is, and maybe you kind of can relate to this as well, because you had a long career in corporate America before becoming an entrepreneur. I think that in corporate America, you are not rewarded for saying I failed.
Oh no.
You are.
Oh yeah.
What you're always
No.
trying to do is spin your story as to why it was a success, and what and so you're not really allowed to say, okay, this didn't work.
Yeah.
And this is what we're going to do, because there's so many constituents involved in like
Totally agree.
whether something was a success or whether it was a failure, all of that.
Yep.
I think when you're an entrepreneur, you learn very quickly that failure is a part of it. In any given, month, or, you could fail at 5 things, and those are things that you learn from. I think a lot of people, we learn the best from failure, because it's
where you learn. I totally agree with you. And I actually love that, because I think that's one thing we do have to realize. And that is where, and not bashing corporate America in any way, but we do have to, like, we are human. So being human, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to do things. And I think the piece that I always instilled, even when I was in corporate America, particularly the last 5 years as like an executive, and what was important to me, one was to treat everybody like they were human. We're all people. But it was to quickly reflect on failure. So like we could still like reflect on it, and what are you going to learn, and just move on.
Yeah.
And I think that's also the piece that like both Thyme and I bring to this, is like to do that. The last piece of advice, which I do want to say, because I think this is probably the best one, that I feel that has been part of our success, has been surround yourself with an amazing network. So anybody who is going to go out and go do this, is you need cheerleaders who can be honest with you in the good and the bad, so that they can put a mirror up in front of your face and say, look, like, you know what, you need to do this differently, and let me give you advice. Or they're also that amazing network that they're going to put you in, connect you with people. And honestly, I mean, that's how we're having a conversation today. So it's like the network that you can create around you. I've always used this phrase from when I was like 25 years old, is your network is your net worth. And really just nurture that, and utilize that. And there's amazing people that want to be able to help, and or you then get to do the reverse, which is really exciting as well. So that's been a big one.
Yeah. And I love that. And I think that's one of the things that as women, we are so good at connecting with one another. As you said, we were connected through someone who is another awesome female entrepreneur, Mimi Banks. We'll give her a little shout out. Mimi, who had a long career in the cosmetics, in the beauty industry, and then started her own business, which is also doing phenomenally well. So, I guess my question for you too is, I know we're getting close to needing to ask for questions from the audience. So if you're watching live and you want to ask some questions, please feel free to type them in now. We'll take them in a minute. But Denielle, I would love to hear if you could give like what would be your best piece of advice for somebody who, is maybe not, maybe someone's looking to start a business, or maybe someone's just looking to start a project, like an important project what is your best piece of advice for someone to get started, or
I think
maybe stick with it?
I think the two things, one, I mean, I said it before, believe in yourself. It is being able to have that confidence in yourself. Like, we all have so much self-doubt, and like, as women, we've got to start stripping that away, because damn, so many of us are good. Like, we are. And so like, we've got to do that. And then on the other part is just is being authentic, be yourself. And, I'm coming into this, and so is my cousin, at the second stage of our careers. And it's actually allowed us to be very authentic and be ourselves and put our face out there. And, I think that's the other part too, is, as you're building a business too, like, believe in yourself, believe in your vision, because you have an idea for a reason. But, how can you be authentic while you're doing it?
Yeah, I love that. And one of the other things that I think is important for people to take from your experience and that what you've shared with us is really lean into your story. Because, as you said, until your cousin, your co-founder, decided to put that costume on and, be authentic to herself, because that's something that she felt totally comfortable doing, and it was different, and it really got you guys noticed, and it was clearly something that changed the game for you. And that's what it takes. It just takes kind of, and you don't necessarily get that right out of the gate. It could take a little bit of time to kind of figure out what that is. So I will say, if you guys looks like we have a question here. This is from Claire. So, now that you own your own organic brand, do you hold other products to a higher standard that claim to be organic? And if so, what do you typically look for? What are those standards?
Yep. I love that question. I mean, this is why very early on we partnered with Beauty Counter. There's a couple of organizations that are out there, EWG, Environmental Working Group, which I use. I really do look at them. They actually you can scan your products. You go to Whole Foods, go to Stop and Shop, go to Target, wherever you're shopping, you can actually scan your product to just see how safe it is. And knowing, just with families and what we're doing, and, what we put in and on our bodies matters more than ever, honestly. And if we can control certain things that are in our own household, we should. So that's one. And then the other one is Women Voices of the Earth, which is another organization that looks at the ingredients that are in different products as well. So it is, I've always been organic. And so this was the one thing I hadn't changed. So this is now sort of the culmination of my upbringing.
And that's all. I mean, and it's, as you said, like, going back to that authenticity of, what is, your life about, and kind of thinking about that. And it's been it ended up being such a great value. So here we go. You have another question. This one's from Missy. Can you talk about the role of feminine care companies like yours in helping to reduce or eliminate the tax on period products in the U.S.?
Love this question, Missy. So there are still 30 states that tax feminine care, which is totally crazy. It's classified as a luxury item. And so I think there's two things. The feminine care brands definitely have a role in this. This is also the government. And so when you think about so much of that, this has been male-led, we have to continue to raise our voices as much as we can. As we talk about just period poverty, then you layer on tampon tax. So you're layering on this additional expense to women as it is. And this is a big part for us. You can write to your local representatives. There's petitions out there all the time, and really pushing. What's been great since we started this brand is that we've actually seen 7 states change within the last 2 years. So that's been great. So there's definitely momentum happening, but to still hear that there are 30 states. I mean, Viagra's not taxed, Rogain's not taxed, Doritos aren't taxed. Like, you think about some of these categories, and that this is a necessity item is totally, it's bananas to us.
Yeah, I mean, and I didn't even realize that, because I think maybe the state that I live in, we don't have the tax. So there are still, you said there's still 30 states?
30 states. 30 states
that have tax on period products.
Yep.
And I guess they always say that there's not supposed to be tax on necessity items. So how, if period products are not necessity items, what is?
Yeah.
I guess to your point, that is why things need to change. But great that, I mean, 7 states in such a short
it was a very short period of time.
Maybe there's momentum for that to change.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much. I know we've taken, we went a little bit over, but it's, you have so many amazing insights, and I could talk to you for a lot longer. But thank you so much for joining us today, Denielle. It's a pleasure to have you, and best of luck with Top Organic. I know that we have some people who are going to get some of the swag bags that you had, that you made available to us. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And thanks so much for being here, Denielle.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day, everyone.